Welcome everyone to the second session of the town hall for first one of the year, second session of the day. Morning to those over in the West Coast. Start again. Yeah.
In the
Getting a bit
West.
rusty on these. Exactly, in the West. Bit rusty on these. Hope
Just
you're all
before
well.
the flat Earth, we're
Yes, yeah, exactly. Just there's nothing.
before it goes into
Um,
the abyss.
yeah. Good. Yeah, so we thought we would have a fairly sort of laid back meeting this time. We don't have too much to go into, but we wanted to talk to you about our immediate roadmap plans and then really open the floor to get your feedback on what we've either released late last year that you've managed to have a play around, maybe Studio V2, some of the e-commerce changes, that kind of stuff, or looking at any urgent requirements for the next few months, let's say, or actually looking further ahead, maybe zooming out a bit and looking at the big picture, which I've tried to do quite a bit of the last few weeks and really look at the vision and sort of where we're heading and what would be the most valuable for you guys and for end customers as well. So yeah, we'll do that, and then just generally opening the floor, kind of any sort of 2024 things that you guys are working on or worth mentioning, anything you're tackling or wanting to achieve. So, and obviously open to any questions as well. So yeah, just quickly in terms of the ones that we're working on right now and that we plan to get out pretty quickly. That would be things like a few more e-commerce improvements. So VAT calculations, allowing you to do it sort of per product, per line, per basket, that kind of thing, and automatically building attribute groups and sets. So that's something that website success have asked for a little while. Should help speed up management. And just some other improvements there. If there's any specific e-commerce ones, do make sure we know. E-commerce is always kind of growing and it's always specific to your project that you're working on at the time. So it'd be handy to know any of those features. Aside from that, we have mainly looking at DNS improvements. So I don't know how often all of you guys work in DNS, but there've just been a few things that either haven't been working quite correctly recently, or just improvements that we've seen from a UX perspective. We spoke to Platform OS about managing subdomains better, for example. It was a bit manual before, and you can now manage subdomains way more easily. You just can tick a box whether you want the www record to be added or not. And just some other UI improvements, just so that like if you add a record that isn't correct, it'll tell you that that one's pending, and you'll know to sort of check the details and add it again. So, and obviously any feedback on DNS and improvements would be helpful as well. And then finally, looking at the reseller billing side of things, we can just make a few improvements there to give you a bit more history in terms of the sort of data of the past months, and also being able to give you access to all of it via API. So making that available so that you can take that into Google Sheets maybe, or an offline system, maybe even automate the whole process so you know when to charge customers more. So we'll work on that side of things. Yeah, in this morning's session, which you might want to watch the recording for, we just got stuck into it, and then I kind of came back to it and explained some of the vision that we've been working on. I think I'll do it back to front this time, see if it makes a difference, but also I think it is quite helpful just to hear the kind of focus that we've had, and it might help sort of start some discussion. So just to give you a sort of quick summary, it's nothing huge or revolutionary, I guess, but just been looking at where we are, where we can go, that kind of thing, what would be the most valuable. So looking at it from a sort of high level perspective, the vision has kind of always been to make it a platform for anything. So allow you to build anything from a tiny landing page all the way up to a complex bespoke application, or maybe even something completely different, like a standalone use case that's not really even a website. You can use it for any of those things. And I think we've always focused on that and tried to deliver on that. Hopefully it's generally correct. There's not many times where you'd need to go off and do something else. But that doesn't mean it's the the best at everything, and that's obviously somewhere I'll come back to in a second. Second would be sort of API for everything. So platform for anything, API for everything. So being able to access all of that data via API. There's still some work to be done there. We want to make sure you can access anything. So things like a Pages API would be really nice, so that you can pull actual content out and maybe even work with AI tools for SEO, for example, to improve content dynamically and automatically. So I think there's a little bit more we can do there on the API side of things. Just letting a couple people into the room. Just 1 second. Right. I think. Okay. And then, so yeah, platform for everything, API for everything, and then the third one would be sort of custom thing, trying to keep on the theme of things. So custom being where you can actually use Siteglide for a specific product or use case. That's where we've done quite a bit more recently, and we can really use some of the foundations we've built, such as user roles. User roles would allow you to strip the back-end UI down to just exactly what you need it to be. And then with other features like custom UI, which we realized from this morning's meeting, people aren't too aware of and don't necessarily know how to get the most out of, you can really customize the product beyond that. You can kind of make your own UI in the back end and give customers total control over what they see and what they can do. And that raised some really good questions, actually. Somebody mentioned being able to customize the left-hand side menu like you could in Business Catalyst. So that's where you would be able to potentially just completely change the left-hand side. We even thought about changing the dashboard, the first page when you log in, that you'd see, being able to control what appears there. It might be different boxes to different areas, but also might be a completely custom UI that you design and control. And everyone sort of raised that they weren't too familiar with how to get the most out of custom UI. So moving on to another topic for today's call was more about whether you'd like to see more workshops. We did the e-commerce workshop at the end of last year, and we're talking about whether doing regular workshops would be useful. The outcome from this morning was definitely, and the first one would be maybe not specifically on custom UI, but something around like customer user experience, or the user experience of the back end, and even potentially the front end, how you help people get the most out of it. So what we said we'd probably do is alternate between a town hall like this, just a quick, well, can be quick meeting where we just can go through any key topics, and then the alternating one would be a town hall plus a workshop afterwards, like we did in December. So we'll give that a try. The next one in February we would do as a workshop for customer experience, see how we get on with that. We could always increase or decrease the frequency. So yeah, and then the final point out of the 4 things on the vision that I've been sort of focused on would be sort of simpler, better, faster, the kind of concept of maybe not building any specific features at that point, but focusing on making sure the UI is as good as possible, easy to use, fast, better docs potentially, and improve the onboarding process maybe for when you invite your customers, and just generally improve the overall experience, better tools for building, better tools for managing, that kind of stuff. And things like the list view in the back end, being able to have more options there, bulk select, bulk add to category, that kind of stuff, wanting to give you more usability features. So yeah, that's sort of a summary of where I've been. I mean, there's obviously then detail behind that. There's things that we'd like to do, like disconnecting CRM from forms so that you can control whether you use the CRM or not. Another one quickly, because it might be something you want to talk about, would be custom modules just for one site. So it being much easier to build a module without it having to go through the full sort of marketplace process. And yeah, that kind of thing. I think menu builder now becoming like a bigger use case. So category management as well is quite a nice feature that we brainstormed a little bit earlier. So yeah, I think that's our vision. There's obviously more detail to add to that, and then prioritization of when to do things. And that's where you guys come in, really. Help us understand what's urgent, what's most valuable, um, and any other insights or struggles. So over to you.
So is there anything going on with DNS right now that I need to be aware of? Because I'm about to launch a site. So is it just subdomains that are problematic, or is there something quirky with DNS right now?
There shouldn't be anything problematic. Everything should be running as normal. We just noticed there were some UX improvements that we could make. So a couple of things have required our input occasionally, but as you know, we're always there support wise. So just either let us know in advance or let us know if you hit any issues, and we'll help you out. But if you're adding a normal domain, do you know if it would be fully delegated or external?
No, yeah, fully delegated here. That's been my
Yeah,
preference just because things seem to work better that way, you know.
yeah. Yeah, it is much better that way, really. You've got more control. So yeah, I think the only thing you'd notice is you now press a button to turn on or turn off, sorry, www dot if you don't want that. If you don't want it to show the W's for a subdomain. So yeah, you just leave that turned on and everything else should work as normal. And in theory, there shouldn't be any issues, but obviously if there are, just to let us know.
Yeah, yeah. So is this the, I guess, open floor question and answer section? Because I have
Go
two
for
more
it.
questions.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll go ahead and get into them. One is where are we on like system feedback notifications in terms of like JavaScript on the front end. For example, when somebody um, goes to let's say it's a form that they're needing to fill out to access a secure zone, or it's the form that they, need to enter their login credentials when they're logging in. Is there some sort of notification workflow um, that could say if there's an email already detected in the system under that name and they're trying to sign up for that name, a notification that says, there's already an email set up with this account. Please click here to log in. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know we
Mm.
have JavaScript errors for, entering information in required fields, but could that be expanded into a sort of workflow that allows us to edit the message, of sorts for things like detecting an account already or the password not being of the right format. It doesn't have a special character, it doesn't have an uppercase, lower, or just whatever, just things, just like system level feedback, notifications like that. I mean, it seems to me that that would benefit the whole entire community, not just a use case, you know?
I'm probably not the right person to give all of the answers on this, but some of it is, I believe, better done front end JavaScript. So things like validation of something being filled in or an email address structure or something like that is, I believe, is better off done as JavaScript, and you can do it quicker and more visibly, maybe. In terms of things like checking whether the user already exists, that feels like a big thing that I feel we discussed quite a lot, probably many years ago even, and it gets a bit complicated in terms of whether people should be able to um, try and reset access or I can't remember the complexity of that, but I feel like we went through that process. And I'm not sure why we don't have anything specific to handle it. So I'll probably take that one to the team and go through it in more detail. I Yeah, I don't really understand why we couldn't provide you with whether
But
it
wouldn't it
exists
have
or
to
not.
read the database?
Yeah.
And so could that pose a security risk?
Yeah, potentially you've got to do a lookup. Yeah, I'm not. Maybe that is why, but again, we could probably do that. I don't know. Yeah, this is where it's a bit beyond me. I know some stuff. So if you're using Site Builder, for example, forms are. We've spent quite a lot of time, Matt Jones in particular, building that out so you can very, very easily dynamically build forms with all of the validation and everything built in. So that saves you a lot of time and it makes sense for all of that to be front end JavaScript. So I'd definitely look there if you're not using that already. Whether we could do more back end, I don't know, to be honest, and I'll try and get that answer for you. I just think there are times where you just wouldn't. And as you say, Michael, it might be that either it's usage intensive or security risk or
Unless it
another
could be
reason.
like limited. I mean, like when you try to sign up for, let's say, a Google account, sometimes it comes back and says, or an account on a social media platform, it'll come back and say user's already, user's already in the data, or user's already been taken. So maybe it's a limited read of the database, or maybe it's stored in a different area rather than, I don't know. I know what DJ's asking, and it makes sense because that's a lot of social media platforms and things like that. I'll check, you know, for
Well,
user.
I mean, I'm just thinking of a
Yeah,
current situation. When there's no feedback, it confuses the customer. Now, granted, I have a support channel, of sorts on my client sites, and I offer that, as an option for them to just write in and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and it's not working for me. Can you help me? Obviously, in that situation, I would step in, I would log into the back end of that instance, I would search for their name.
right.
If I see their name, then I can tell them, okay, this is the email address that we have on file. Be sure that you're trying to reset the password using this email address or something to that effect. But in my mind, that it seems like there could be more automation there to where I
Mm.
don't have to
Yeah,
step in to help to assist in that process of something like that.
no, you shouldn't be having to do that. It's either a case that it needs to be added front end, or could be something that could be done back end. But you should definitely be able to achieve it front end at the moment. I would have thought. Um, like I say, I'm not able to give you the best answers on this. I don't have anybody else on the call. I don't think no who on the team who could. So. I tell you what, I'll take that one offline and we'll come back to you via Discord most likely, DJ, and we'll probably put it in a public channel as well, so we can clarify that for people, maybe the developers channel, to make it clear how you would achieve that kind of thing, and also how it's currently set up.
Sure, sure. Then my second question is, what's the final verdict on membership subscription notification emails? Is the final verdict just to let site gurus do it, create a task over there and ask them to do it? Or is there a hybrid of, we can do some things on our own through developer docs on Siteglide and then possibly, ask site gurus to assist to take it over the finish line? Or is it something that you guys are thinking about integrating into Siteglide? A workflow for, like, example, if somebody comes to a website, one of my clients sells membership access to secure zones,
Mm-hmm.
and we're currently offering a monthly membership subscription and an annual membership subscription. So when people fill out the annual, as you know, people forget, they forget over time.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be really nice is if we could somehow trigger a notification email that says, your annual membership subscription is coming due in 7 days or whatever. Some
Yeah,
sort of something like that that can be triggered, you know, um, almost 12 months after the customer signs up as a reminder. Now, I know that
yeah,
when we've talked a little bit about this, we've said, okay, well, we could possibly pass this responsibility off to Stripe, because as
I
Stripe
was going
being
to
the
say.
payment gateway,
That was
Stripe
what I
could
was.
have some possible triggers over time that could automatically trigger, email notifications. But I mean, again, if we could keep it in within the Siteglide admin, I think that would possibly be better, and again, probably beneficial to the whole community is
I think there's probably a bigger thought process there as well, actually, in terms of like, what if someone cancels their subscription or potentially doesn't pay, or maybe some other scenarios, but you almost don't want there to be two sources for that. So Stripe actually takes the payment. So in a way, it's good that some of it is handled there, but then it's sort of more about like webhooks and stuff to make sure that you update access and things like that. So again, I
Mm.
wish I had a better answer for you, but yeah, I think there definitely should be a very clear way on how to do this on Siteglide, and that's something that we can talk about with maybe openly in Discord with SiteGuru's assistants. So not having to do it as like a project or anything, but just us working out based on the current functionality, what we'd recommend doing, and then also looking at whether that's creates some roadmap opportunities. But in theory, I think yes. Well, maybe this was mentioned last time as well, but in theory, you could use automations, and you could run an automation that checks for a timestamp in the web app or something like that, and sends out an email based on that trigger. So I think it can be done. Why it's not available out of the box and whatever is probably probably time and focusing on other things. But I agree, it's an obvious thing that you would want as part of membership. So I definitely like to look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
if that's okay for now, then we'll again I'll pick that one up with the team. We'll start a discussion, a thread on it in Discord, and we'll try and get to a conclusion with it for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Just make some notes on those two.
I had a question on two questions actually. One going back to the DNS external management. Is the DNS going through some changes where it would cause issues with page load? So like we've been running some tests on Lighthouse and noticed that there's some really slow page loads for, I mean, not super slow, but not super fast. We've kind of also figured out there's some image issues. I went with my client, they had these PNGs they didn't need, they could make
Yeah,
JPEGs. So that helped. But
most likely that. Yeah.
yes, most likely that. But is there anything that could be happening with this change on the DNS? And they manage it externally too. So, I don't have full control over
Mhm.
that. But would there be anything happening right now that could cause,
It's very, very unlikely that any
right?
of the DNS stuff would relate to page speed. So when we're talking about DNS, we're more talking about the setup of like adding
Correct.
extra
Because they're
records, that
reading
kind of
from
stuff.
the Amazon server.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's
okay.
very unlikely that it
That's
would
why I just
be.
thought I'd throw that question out. And the second question, of course, is the good old AI search with Platform OS. What's the status on that? Because I was reading
Um,
through their documents and they introduced it a while back,
yeah,
but then I tried to read through to see where it was being implemented or if it's OpenAI Alpha Search or whatever it is.
yeah.
And
So
that's because it's not in beta. That was alpha. That was in July, I think. But
I think the answer I gave you last time, to be honest, is probably the same.
oh,
I think we
you're
discussed
trying
it
to go
just
through
before
the docs,
Christmas.
right?
Well, yeah, like they haven't documented it enough, but I
Right.
know that we did raise it with them, and I know that Matt Jones is keen to relook at that, and I will make a note to try and
Okay.
prioritize that
I mean,
for
is there
the next
anything I
couple of
need to
weeks.
do? Like, do I throw it in the forum or something with platform, or maybe I can't do that, but you know what I mean?
Um,
Call Adam
I,
Broadway because I know Adam Broadway's in there.
yeah, I don't think that'll help you, to be honest. I mean,
No,
you're
I know
welcome to
that.
try, but
I say bug off.
um, no, I think I think we need to take another look at it, and
Yeah.
then we need to have an open dialogue
Okay.
with them and a focused amount of time on it, where we say, look, guys, help us work through it. And as long as Matt Jones is on it, I think we can make some progress relatively quickly. So
Okay.
I'm going to try and make that something that we pick up in the next, I'm going to say, week or so, and we'll give you a better
That's
update
great.
very soon, because I,
Okay.
I hate
Fantastic.
delaying things. I hate
No,
finding that I've not
I know, but I
progressed it,
just
and I want
had
to.
to ask.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Let me make a note of these quickly. I can't keep up fully. So DJ, there was the membership renewals. What was the first one? Sorry. Oh, form feedback.
Yeah, yeah.
Specifically
Or like,
login.
password reset or new account
Yeah,
registrations. If there's already an account with that name, that it gives some sort of notification.
exactly. Yeah, that one. Surprised I can't work out what the solution is on that. But yeah, we'll come back to you. And then Michael, AI search. So again, as I sort of say both times on that, there's two things there. There's AI and there's also the improved elastic views search. And we kind of want to do both at the same time. And that will give you an answer as to whether you can just do improved search or you can also bring AI into it and chat
that's
GPT
great.
potentially.
That's fine.
POS docs. Great. Anything else? To try and giving some feedback on the earlier session while anybody's thinking of others, and maybe some prompts. Something that got raised was the idea of a booking system, so event stroke bookings, a module for that that would help with managing bookings. Is that of interest? I can see some nodding, Michael.
Yeah,
Yep.
Site Gurus it actually has made a really cool module for one of my clients that's like a calendar module.
I think it
And
is yours actually that's prompted
yeah, no,
me to sort of think about
it's
this. Yes.
very nice. And it would be, I would love to see it expanded into being able to do more with it, like, take payments. I just had one client that just wanted like a calendar and they came up with a pretty cool solution.
Yeah.
So
Is
but
it
yeah,
is it Josh that's been working on that for
yeah,
you?
yep,
I think this is the one that I've been discussing with Matt Jones, actually.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So we're thinking, well, if we're working on that kind of thing, we can see it's a missing piece. We'll try and take it a bit further and expand it into something more
yeah.
more valuable, more flexible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the
Do
thing to
you-
being able to integrate it with like, I mean, they've integrated it with the booking, kind of like the booking form anyway, but being able to integrate it site-wide would just be nice because you have a seminar or something, you want to book out time. You've got, I mean, you'd have a client who maybe wants to book out sessions for online counseling, you've got all those kinds of things that you could utilize and integrate right into
exactly.
it. And I think it could be an
Exactly.
option of this module. So.
And have you seen, I assume you've seen it, but the
Oh
custom
yeah.
UI
I
side of
mean, when
it.
we'd been tweaking it back and forth, and the first time we saw it, there was no way to edit the date. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't think that's gonna work. And so we worked through that kind of stuff. So we have that ability. And yeah, no, it turned out pretty nice. I mean, it's pretty basic, but that's because my client didn't have a huge budget on that. But I think you could definitely expand it into something in addition to, that could compete with, any of the other modules on that level. So
Yeah, so I know everybody else can't really visualize it necessarily, but there's a custom UI for that. So if you guys haven't seen custom UI, it's essentially being able to control exactly what people see and can do in the back end. So people can go into the bookings and manage them, which you just wouldn't get from the standard list view on a web app, let's say, or a detailed view.
right.
So yeah, there's so much scope there for taking custom UI quite a bit further. You could end up using user roles in conjunction with custom UI to basically, from a customer perspective, they could think they're logging into a booking system, but they wouldn't even know that it's capable of building websites and everything else. So
Yeah, well, like
this is
on a
where,
user role, you could also, for example, for like this is a vacation rental client of mine, but you have your general audience that wants to rent the rental, but then you also have your owners who want to be able to come in. So, you could set up user roles for, an owner to come in and be able to have access to that booking module and be able to block out time specific to the owner
exactly.
versus the general public. So that's where that user role could be integrated too. So
And this is where it links back to the kind of usability and sort of better, simpler, faster thing. If you end up giving them a very bespoke experience, that's way better than giving them just WordPress backend to log into and fight your way around and try
please,
and break
please don't
stuff.
swear in this forum.
Yeah,
Yes, everyone knows I do
good.
not like WordPress.
But yeah, we just want to really give you that kind of flexibility,
Mhm.
and you can end up selling that for, considerably more potentially than giving them all the features, which seems
Yep.
crazy, but yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Anybody else, or firstly, Michael, I guess, do you see more use cases for that module itself, for other clients, and do you see it
Well,
being a valuable?
I do, only because I live in a vacation resort area, in Western in California. And so, I would have use for that for sure for people of that nature. There's events, special events, things like that that people book, up here during the summer months. But I also have medical clients, that would probably use it for when they do, hosting their training sessions, things like that. They could show, book times for that. So I think it's not just right now, it's just using it for a vacation rental client, but I think it could be it's just a calendar booking. So you can kind of go in and say, here's the amount of days I want to book, here's my name, here's my contact information. You can link it to a form and all that stuff. And then the client goes back and blocks that time out, and then it displays on the web. And eventually I think you could want it to where it's real time, but the problem with real time is, you've got, if you got a high traffic website, that's the issue with online when they take the payment for
Yeah.
a booking like that. And so that's why usually we try to go through a host that supplies that and then integrate it into Siteglide. But this is just a nice basic module that can be integrated. And again, I know it can be expanded beyond what the capabilities are right now. So,
It
but
would be
yes, the answer is
Salon
yes,
for
I would
me.
use something like that.
Yeah, Salon for me.
Yeah.
Salon would be oh yeah, that'd be a perfect option for a salon.
Well, right now we're using appointments by Square,
Right.
Right.
Okay.
but it's because we're using Square as our payment gateway, as well, because they
And see,
have
right now
the
it's
app,
just a calendar that allows the people to book time. Then they send a request to my client, and then my client goes in and says, yes, that's available, or no, that's available, manually. And then they book it out. And then so when they come to the site, if it's already booked out, they're not going to be able to book that time. What the Square obviously would be a little more dynamic because you're using their system, and then they can pay for it right on the spot and lock it in. But
Yeah. No,
certainly probably.
it blocks it. It removes the appointment from
Yeah.
availability if somebody books that slot, or that, particular block of time or whatever. It displays it in blocks of time and then you select, but it also is influenced by the service. So if you're getting a men's haircut, that would only be like 30 minutes, so it would, if you selected 10, it would block out from 10 to 10:30 for a men's haircut. But if you did a woman's long hair haircut with highlight, that might take 2 hours. And so again, if that person selected a time of 10 o'clock, it would automatically block out two based on the service attached to that book,
Yeah.
that they select for that booking,
So
those kinds of things. And then the next person that comes to book, 10 to 12 would be blocked off and they wouldn't be able to select that
yep.
time slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to think let's not reinvent the wheel if we don't have to, but there seemed to be enough people in the last meeting, especially saying, that using a third party was frustrating in some cases. There are times where you want all the data in one place. So I think it's sort of weighing up, because obviously if you then bring it into the platform, you've then got to still do integrations for things like, well, payment, well, maybe not payment, but some of the other bits. Or I think one example is getting it into a CRM, as another piece of data that you've got to connect with. So I think you've always got to work out where it should be, but it seemed like there was a good enough argument for having this kind of functionality within the platform and within the website effectively. Would you guys agree if it gave you the same capabilities? So I guess, Michael, the answer was yes for this
Well,
project.
yes, only because I mean with the salon, I think the salon is a good example of a fairly straightforward booking, because it's generally one date, one time, one
Hmm.
block of information, and then obviously you're trying to collect that money. Whereas with a vacation rental, they tend to block out days, and a lot, at least where I am, people block out in a year in advance. And so what I was running into also with clients is a lot, a lot of them want to kind of control what they rent out. And when they go to some of these services online, Airbnb or whatever, they have to kind of release a certain amount of rentals to that, and then that takes them out of their, and they don't like losing control like that.
Mm.
The other thing is a lot of the services that do the full booking where they can allow the owner to log in and they can set the pricing, they can collect the money and integrate it through Stripe and all that stuff cost a lot of money because they charge, I mean, it's a lot per rental, and it just starts to add up, and then they run into these huge amounts, and then they're not really utilizing it because again, they still want to hold on to some of those rentals. And so
Yeah.
paying to have the service capability to block it out, and they're the ones ending up blocking it out, not
Yeah.
the people online. So that's kind of where this evolved, but I can see for other practices like Square, like a restaurant, also has a good Square has good integrations for restaurants, for ordering takeout and things like that. So I don't know, it's six of one, half a dozen the other, but I think the argument definitely is, it's nice to also keep the data on Siteglide so you have access to it for marketing or manipulation or whatever you want to do with it too, versus
Yeah, and
trying to extract it.
it's somewhat a numbers game as well. Like if in theory you only build some of this once, you only build the mechanism to handle the calendar once, hopefully, and then everybody can customize it to their needs. So in theory, if there's kind of a few use cases and we can help expand upon what you've started and then build some other features in, you always maintain total control. You keep it within the platform, and yeah, you don't have sort of third parties telling you what you have to do or pay. So yeah, okay. It sounds like yeah, Julia's just said it'd be very beneficial. It seemed like, oh, and David as well. It just seemed like something that everybody seemed positive about. And
I mean,
my
here's another way to think of it, Luke. If you pretended to be the customer from the customer's perspective, think about it this way. If I'm coming to you and you're presenting yourself as a web professional, I'm coming to you, I'm engaging you to build my website because that's what you say you do. You build websites and you can take that over for my company. And we go through the negotiation and all of that. You give me a price for your services. And then we get to this booking thing. And then you're telling me that I have to go and pay a third party service and create an account with them, or you would create the account on my behalf at that third party service in order to handle that particular functionality at an additional cost. I'm sitting here going, well, then who are you? You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? Like, what are
And
you
not
doing
only that, add on to
in this
that, when
role?
that third party service has issues, or let's say they go out of business or whatever, you're stuck with having to deal with that issue. Could be a legal
Right.
issue as well.
Well,
And
I'm never doing just that.
yeah,
Not having a
yeah.
problem.
I mean, I had that kind
I-
of with Business Catalyst, but and that's why I started putting in my contract saying I'm not responsible for third parties, going out
Yeah.
of business and stuff.
Well,
But
I mean, we have a marketing platform that we use. It does off booking services plus a bunch of other features, and we've integrated it with Siteglide. So the website Siteglide does a boatload of stuff, but we're using the booking services for classes because this organization, that's what they do. They have classes. So you can sign up for the classes, pay for it and everything, and it's really smooth. Then it ties into a bunch of automations, and it's freeing up a lot of time for staff. But it's two systems that we're plugged in together, and it's actually working very smooth. So when I talk to the client, I just explained that to them. So basically, we're rebilling the cost of that service to them. They don't care. They just want the problem to go away. So I took care of the problem. We've been actually upgrading some stuff in the last week or so, and it's going to save them both over time. Just because we've got all the things working together. So that's what I've been doing is, we've changed everything from regular workflows to now we're doing booking calendars and using a booking calendar, and you can use it for a salon. In this case, we're using it for classes that are not reoccurring, than one-off classes. But in some point in the future, they will be doing classes that are subscription based. So that's a whole different ballgame, but we can do that. With the tool that I'm using. So I've merged the two together so that we can provide the tools, resources the client needs. And that's because we need to do this now. We actually started working on this a couple of years ago, so the calendar has just been updated probably within the last year or so. So now that we can do the kinds of bookings that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's many cases where a third party is still needed, like CRM we talked about in the call earlier, email marketing. You're not going to easily just completely rebuild those kind of features and replace them. So I think people expect to have what do you call it? A stack, a collection of tools that they use for their business, and that's okay as long as you can integrate them well, as you say, and make it all run smoothly. But there's also the argument of some stuff that you kind of expect might be more integrated, part of the platform and integrated. So yeah, it seemed like from discussions earlier as well that booking would make sense to have that more within the platform. I guess with it being CRM, web apps, secure zones already, it kind of makes sense to leverage that infrastructure and bring it in if we can. So yeah, really helpful. I think we'll probably start looking at how we can map that out and involve everybody via Discord and maybe workshops as well to get more feedback on what you'd like. But just to give you a sort of summary of how this fits into the vision, I guess everybody always recommend that you try and have some kind of niche that you focus on. And it's very hard for us because if we just said, right, we're now going to make Siteglide an X, like just let's say a booking system, that'd be crazy. We'd be missing out on all the different things that everyone uses it for already and all the things it can do. So we're thinking, well, if we make the marketplace have specific customizable things like a booking system, a whatever, a different array of things, then you guys can actually end up having the niche opportunities if you want to. So you can go, right, I'm going to really drill down into vacation rentals as an example. So yeah, I think that's where it comes back to this sort of high level, let's make it do everything, but let's also make it do each thing very, very well and make it as customizable and dialed in as possible to that problem. So I think we can see a lot of opportunities by going that route, and that way we can make sure we're really, really good at X, Y, and Z by using the marketplace.
I'll just give you a quick example. I don't want to take up too much time, but for example, I have one platform that doesn't do automations, doesn't do any kind of workflow notifications. So I have to use Zapier. And then, of course, there's Siteglide, which has all the wonderful workflow automations. I had a client who got their email blacklisted. And I was just like, what are you doing? Sending out spam email? Use MailChimp or whatever, I can help you with that. And they're like, no, we're not doing that. And so I had to contact OpenSRS and found out there was a Zapier. Zapier was triggering this, thinking that it was a bug, because I had an automation that basically when they sign a form saying, thank you for visiting our resort and here we're booked now or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it would send it out. But the point is it shut Zapier down for a month until they could really kind of figure out what was going on. And my clients were pulling out their hair going, we're not doing it. We're not sending out any kind of spam. Why is OpenSRS shutting us down? And finally we were able to determine what it was, got it fixed. But that's an example of when you have a third part, a second platform you're using, one, you have to keep an eye on it, which I do, but you can run into those things. Whereas, the built-in workflow of Siteglide is just wonderful because you can send a notification both to the customer as well as the admins or users or whatever and let them know. And that's just, that's an argument for having it on the platform, I guess is what I'm saying, versus externals.
Yeah, and I think there are obviously cases where third parties are needed, but I think where we try and handle some of those for you makes sense. Like obviously Stripe and SendGrid are two really good examples where we're not going to try and be a payment provider. We're not going to try and do deliverability on emails. We've got great providers for that. If we focus on the integration and platform OS, admittedly on those ones as well, we can make sure that the integration is really good. And then you guys can actually use it and build custom solutions. Whereas if you're having
Zapier does way more than just autoresponders. That was an example of.
But where you're having to go off and do all of the integrations, I guess it's just yet again you're managing it and then another agency is managing it. And there's a lot of duplication that hopefully we can help try and resolve. So if we ended up doing bookings using Stripe, SendGrid, and maybe another tool, at least then that's done at like a done all in one go, and it makes sense to manage it if we're doing it on behalf of lots of users. So, okay, let's
I
start.
see what you're saying, Luke, and I completely agree. But, to put a little bit more of a visual on that, what I would expect is that you guys build the core functionality that allows me to put in my HTML, my CSS, brand it however I want, and then if I want to spin up the booking module, that kind of thing, Stripe is already linked to the platform as a payment gateway, so it uses that, it's already linked to SendGrid for the workflow notifications, so it uses that. You know what I'm saying? I see what you're saying, and I agree with that approach rather than requiring us to build, the whole thing and including a Stripe and a SendGrid and that kind of thing. I agree with not duplicating those services, but yet providing your piece to the overall puzzle within Siteglide. Yes.
The tricky bit specifically on that is agreeing or being realistic about how much we can do as core and how much might be better off done in the marketplace. So there'll just be some solutions that we know we're not going to get around to anytime soon. There's something very specific, let's say, and that would make sense that when you've got a live client project, I guess this has happened in this example for Michael, where you needed something, you got on and did it, and then it could potentially become a module later, and that could end up becoming a marketplace module that isn't a core feature, and as long as it's leveraging core features like Stripe and SendGrid and web apps and secure zones, then to some extent it doesn't matter. Obviously, if you get to a point where it fundamentally needs some core features, we can look at building it in. But we've just got to be realistic that some stuff needs to come via a need and a use case and a project, and some stuff comes via the roadmap, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Core Siteglide functionality versus marketplace module. I see that too, and I also, agree that allowing the community to put modules in there, or you guys create the modules yourselves
Yep.
and put it in there to make it available to people like us to spin up whenever we need to deploy this kind of functionality. Yeah.
Well, last thing I'll say on that is Site Gurus had been a bit too distant in the past, but now we've kind of I'm able to run the two alongside each other. We're now going to make sure that we can invest more time into building things, taking core functionality and building tangible things that can go in the marketplace, probably in conjunction with you guys on specific projects. Take the booking system as an example. So I think there's a lot more flexibility now and room to actually build end products rather than just us build fundamental features that then you have to go away and turn into a valuable product.
So what you're saying, you're going to build a better Business Catalyst blog module? But that's the what you're saying. I mean, really, because you're right, because that blog module is terrible. Being able to enhance the existing stuff, whether it's through modules or regular apps or whatever, is getting it to the point where then we can start, as DJ said, slap on our stuff on it, getting us beyond the point of just this basic module to like, oh wow, there's some real functionality here. But now what if I add on this HTML and this and I connect it to Stripe and boom, then you're off in the races. I like that idea a lot.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the blog because we should look at Siteglide.
I love to pick on the blog because it was
it's a really good example because if you look at Siteglide modules, they're called Siteglide modules because they were built as functionality and ended up now in the marketplace. And in reality, I've said for a while, I would like that to become open source, or something that you guys can take and expand upon. And then taking something as an example like gallery, we wanted to build a gallery, but we haven't because it's hard to know exactly how a gallery should work. There's 10 different ways you could build it. So I think we need some sort of hybrid where essentially a blog can run off the core functionality, but it can also be completely third party,
Integrate the
completely
blog with the
customized.
booking module. I mean, you do all those crazy things. Integrate the
Yeah.
blog with the booking module.
So we just need to make sure that the core functionality allows us, you, whoever, to build tangible, valuable starting points that can then still be fully customized.
Yes.
Good.
Like it.
Cool.
All right. So when can you get that done now?
I mean, it already exists. The tricky bit is we've realized this internally that it's sometimes it's hard to get your head around the different pieces of the puzzle that you've already got, pulling them together and working out what the extra mile is that you have to go to turn it into something. Custom UI is a good example. We've come at it from two different ends, and we just need to kind of wrap it up and finish it off a bit. So it's somewhat down to us, but also somewhat down to you guys a little bit, I think, in terms of come to us with an idea, come to us with something you're already working on. And I'd be very happy to, in theory, go in on something together, and we help you get it done, and then it becomes a marketplace tool that either you sell or is free, or we sell. Or I'm very open to how we just get the ball rolling on that. But we've kind of got the infrastructure and the architecture for it. We really need the use cases, the clear brief, and then to get on and do some of them, I think.
Sounds good.
But yeah, as I say, we're going to be doing some on our own. I think booking is a good place to test the water. As I mentioned, I always kept trying to get the team to just do a quick gallery module because I thought it was just such an obvious. I know everybody would like to have one, but we never got started because it was just hard. We didn't have a brief. Somebody needs a live brief that we can work to, I think.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
my walking orders, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Try to
Once we
find a
get past
customer who needs a gallery, right? I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we want to be more vocal with you guys and the same
Mm.
back, really. Let's really have an open floor in terms of what's needed and see if we can help.
I just
I
think
hate
it's
the
good
idea
for
of
the whole
building.
overall growth of Siteglide is if it becomes, we expand, you know what I mean?
I've always hated the idea of like waste. Like someone's put an amazing amount of time into this awesome specific project, and 3 years later or whatever, the clients shut it down. And then you just think, well, even if it stays live, it's only one use case of something. Why not try and turn it into something more valuable and more usable?
Yes.
Cool. Sorry, I've taken over a bit there, but like anything else that you guys like would really like to see this year, or something that you think would make a real difference for winning projects or upselling existing customers or just making life easier?
I think that encompasses what we just talked about, kind of thing.
Here's an
Uh,
odd issue I had, and I think it's a browser issue, but I replaced a number of photographs on a website, and a couple of them show up and some others don't show up. And so I cleared the cache on my computer, shows up on my laptop. It doesn't show up on the client's laptop, even though I've told them to clear their cache. It's not showing up on my phone, although I'll double check the phone. I'll double check and see if that's something going on. So yeah, I'm just having a little struggle trying to identify what the issue is. I'm suspecting it's more clearing the cache than it is replacing the photographs, but it's kind of weird.
If it's not appearing more than it is appearing, I would potentially worry that the cached one is the one that's showing, and actually maybe the image is missing or different URL or deleted or something. Do you think that's possible?
anything's possible.
Have you tried like incognito mode or private
Well, that
mode?
was my concern. It was, yeah, it's just really kind of odd. I've never run across this before. Usually we just upload like, because I had somebody else actually build this site, and so I didn't know, I couldn't find out where the links were for the images, so I couldn't just replace them like I normally would replace them. So I had to upload images with the same names as the images that were there, hoping the new images would overlap or actually replace the old images. And so some of those are replacing and some of them aren't replacing.
Hmm.
And so,
That's
Yeah, I had a similar issue. Actually, I had probably the exact issue. What happened for me is I too just changed the name of the file and
mhm,
uploaded it thinking it would overwrite. But what it ended up doing is it accepted it as a copy. So it automatically added the, you know,
now the words
parenthesis
copy next to it.
one parenthesis to signify that that was the copy of the original image. But that copy wasn't displayed in the back end. It was
Okay,
only displayed on AWS, according to Siteglide. When I, wrote into them, Matt, um, had said, well, I see both images on AWS. And I said, well, I'm only seeing one in the Siteglide admin. The other one was hidden from view for some reason. So I wasn't able to delete one to force the system to recognize the other or the original,
right.
kind of. So I wonder if that's what you're dealing with too. Maybe some of those images were uploaded as copies, even though they had the same name. They didn't overwrite the image. They just made a second copy, and it's that second copy that might be the correct one, but isn't visible in the back end for you to know. So it's displaying the original, something like that.
I'm gonna go check right this second because I've actually logged into Siteglide. So if you're still on when I get an answer to that question, I will let everybody know. But if not, I will reach out to you specifically, DJ.
Sure.
It was just kind of odd,
feel,
unexpected.
feel
Because I
free to
just
put
thought if
it
I just
in.
uploaded an image with the same name, file name, then it would replace the old one with the new one. And I'm not seeing that right at the moment. So
Do feel free to put it in a shared channel in Discord as well. Obviously, then various people can help because there are some strange, not strange things with cache, but like things to be aware of. Like if you do upload with the same file name, in theory, it might not refresh to the new one. There are certain reasons and why it wouldn't. So yeah, feel free to drop it in if you've got any exact file URLs or anything, and we can all help.
okay, I'll do that.
Temporary workaround, Alexandra, for you is to hard code the image instead of using the CDN. So instead of using the bracket,
Right.
images / asset path, blah, 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 instead of using that code snippet in your image, just actually put the entire path of the image
Right.
so that it
Well, I would, except I
circumvents.
can't figure out where where the code is. It's how it was built by this other person. They just buried it somewhere. So I haven't been able to figure out where that particular piece of code is on the website. Um, so it's been a bit of a mystery. I've looked
Are
everywhere.
you
I've looked everywhere I
have,
can think of
have
and
you
have found it.
used the CLI?
Excuse me?
Have you used the Cyclide CLI?
I haven't.
I mean, it's a little complicated, but there's really good documentation. I started using it, I don't know, a year ago because I just wanted to force myself into. I had to wean myself because I'm used to, FTP and all that stuff, and we don't have that here anymore.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of figure out that whole thing, and there's great documentation on SiteGlide. But basically, you have a your text editor or something if you're Mac based or Windows based, whatever, and you connect that up with the CLI, and it allows you to download the whole contents of the website. Beyond just, I mean, you're going to have everything, from SiteGlide, and it puts it in
Mm.
a directory, and then you can go look. And what I'm getting to is I had a client who was uploading stuff And same kind of thing. I don't know where it appears and everything. And they were uploading it to their root directory instead of their assets folder. Because when I downloaded it, I couldn't really see it when I logged in. Because I wasn't really, I mean, in the file manager, it sort of appears there, but not really. You have to kind of look for it. You know, it's not obvious. But then when I looked in the CLI, here it was in the root directory. I'm like, going, what do you got all these images in here for? That's your problem. No, nothing's a problem to my clients. But my point is, it's a little tricky to kind of figure out. So if you're not comfortable with that, you know, there's a learning curve, but it might help you because you can also do synchronize where you can connect the website to it, and then when you upload and change stuff, it synchronizes it and upload it right to the exact folder that whatever you know you're trying to update.
So you see all of your image assets through
Oh, I
CL.
can see the whole structure of I see the whole structure of the website. So it downloads it to a folder. I forget what
No, I
exactly.
know the whole structure, but I mean image assets specifically, because in my CLI, I do not see all image assets
No,
in there.
yeah, anything you put in those folders will appear. So like, for
You
example, going back to this this vacation rental client I have, I put in using the CLI, I created separate folders for each of their rental properties and uploaded all of their images into each folder and then synchronized it to Siteglide, and then it was able to link right to those folders. So you can see image assets, you know, you have you can put them wherever, but I mean, you have like an asset directory as well, but you can create your own directories and then you just point your code to wherever those directories are in the file manager, but you can control them with the CLI. I don't want to take up too much time on it, but it's a little bit of a learning curve because the CLI is kind of funky, but if you spend time with it, I mean, I can't go back now because it's just fun. I use both. I mean, I go online and I use the CLI.
Yeah, no, I use both as
It's
well
handy.
and have for a long time and love it. I'm just saying for me, I've noticed that image assets don't always display in CLI that I see in the admin through the web app. Luke, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, this is not my forte, but I think if you're using CLI pull, you won't get the assets. If you do CLI export/W, you'll get the assets. I'll send you a link to it in the
That
chat.
is
Okay.
correct. That is
Thank-
actually correct. There's a function where you can pull and it only pulls, I think, the change files. Where when you really do export is what I do. This is how I back up my clients. I just go into the CLI and say, you know, export production, and then you add a -W, and that'll take all the assets and everything. So that, you know, I'll get clients who'll upload their own assets without me and then pull them all down. And again, that's how I discovered that they were putting them in the wrong place, because I do the pull and add the -W and it pulls the whole entire website down. So that's a good clarification.
Yeah,
That could be the
obviously
missing piece for me, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
we want to improve the docs everywhere, but I'd say this is one area that the docs hopefully are very helpful. Yeah, that link I sent you specifically takes you to the export tag, so just have a look at that.
Alexandra, one more thing on your topic quickly. Obviously, yeah, do try and do that. I think that will help you massively. CLI will help show you stuff. Also in CLI or Visual Studio Code, whatever you use, you can then search. You could search your asset URL and see which pages or which code, which liquid files it's being used on. That would help you find how the developer's done it. Look, we're not pushing this, but you're very welcome to also ask site gurus, and we could probably find that kind of thing for you in a matter of minutes. But it is worth learning the CLI as well.
Okay.
Julia,
Thanks.
perhaps
I did notice that the images were, it looks like the images are where they're supposed to be, but who knows? I
yeah,
just checked.
help if we can, but in Discord as well.
Yeah, I had I wanted to know if we could step back a minute to the discussion on galleries and to just check in and make sure I know what you're talking about when you say galleries. Are you talking about an image display of multiple images, or are you talking about something else?
I'm talking
Galleries.
about whatever people want it to be, and I think that's the point, really. But yes, either a very basic slider of images, but then it could be a library and catalog of images. There's so many ways you could do a gallery.
Oh yes. So I would like, I'll check in with that in the Discord and either raise a discussion or see if there's one that's already joined, because that's something that I've wanted for a hugely long time. That's a huge part of where I was trying to niche into, is offering image reproduction, since it's, for artists, and which is a big part of my potential clientele and the community I'm plugged into. So I'd love to be able to offer that, but I can't even offer something as basic as Wix or Squarespace, really, without going through the roof in terms of cost to build something that's hugely customized, which is what I was kind of faced with. And I'd love to hook that up somehow to the e-commerce section so that it can be, you can say this image and then go check it out in my store, and which is sort of elemental in my mind for being able to offer that sort of service. So I'll see if there's a discussion, and maybe see if I can collaborate with you guys to design something that would suit that market.
Totally. You couldn't have better described where I think we are at the moment and what I think we need to be doing. It's too much to. We've made something that helps you make anything, but you shouldn't have to start from scratch. And we want to try and have more of those kind of starting points, because what you've just described could start off as something quite generic, but then you still need to be able to customize it. So we need a generic gallery, basic one, let's say, and then somebody will no doubt build one that integrates with e-commerce, like you've just said, or there'll be another version, and we just need to get the ball rolling on that with specific use cases and ideas. So I've just put a link in the chat to the roadmap item for a gallery module. But I mean, that's just a starting point. So yeah, I'll make sure there's a Discord discussion going around this topic anyway, and people can hopefully start helping us map out either what we can be doing to give you a better starting point, or potentially what we can be doing in sort of lots of different ways, partnerships, or just collaborating on something. Just and see where it goes.
Okay,
I
great.
think
Sounds
gallery
great.
would be great too. Galleries
Cool.
are just hugely useful, and whether it's real estate or artwork or whatever it is, it's a huge selling point online on websites.
Absolutely.
And I mean it the right way, but it frustrates me to think that potentially it might get built elsewhere because there's not a simple module that you can just install, and that's our mistake, and I wanna fix it.
Well, just,
Yeah, you should be able to look
having
at
a
the client brief.
gallery, being
Sorry.
able to, going back to the two examples that were given, either artwork or whatnot, you have the artwork, you have the name of the artwork, then you have a description, then you have the artist. You could integrate that all into the gallery, like a little more advanced galleries, and it then becomes, in a sense, a searchable database as well that you could utilize. So it's not just this basic slideshow of multiple images that then you have to integrate with other functionalities, HTML and so on, maybe link them with a web app, so on. You have just a gallery module that has advanced functions of, like, what's the description, what's the artist name, or if it's the other example I can't remember now, but you know where I'm going, is you have it more customizable. That definitely would be worthwhile.
Yeah, I think that brings into play the different sort of use cases, if you're needing an artist and, things like that, that might be, a version of a module specific to bands or, music groups or something like that, or whatever. But then maybe if you do need just the simple slider option, with some text over an image that fades in and fades out between slides, maybe that's just called another kind of slide, another kind of gallery, and that's a different module, kind of thing, rather than try, because like to Luke's point, I think there are too many, there's 10 different ways, 20 different ways to do one thing, but you may not be able to pack all those 20 different ways into one module. You might have to break it out into, 5 or 7 different modules, if you
Right.
will. Yeah.
I think, well, I think slideshow type of module is completely different than something that just displays images. For instance, I've had people in the construction industry want to be able to show the different projects that they have, and we've used like a masonry style gallery just because their images are all different sizes. And so that's one way of doing, because those are all still images, but they're arranged in an attractive manner. And then, slideshow is good for other things. So, or if you had images and I've seen this coded in, where you had the images, and then when somebody hovers over the image, the image has a overlay and there's some text on it. And that's, I mean, you can code all that in and probably do it with a web app, but it would be nice to have it so you could just sort of plug that in and make it so much easier to make it happen.
Well, that's interesting as well, because I was just about to raise that essentially that's kind of the direction we've gone with Site Builder anyway. In theory, in Site Builder, you can go to the X module, let's say it was gallery, and you could pick which layout you want to use. So it's the same database, the same structure that you can go and customize and add your fields to, but you could pick the masonry layout versus the slider layout or slider 3 or whatever. So some of it is actually more just the visual and code visualization of the data, and some of it is more the back end functionality. And sort of as DJ said as well, you almost end up with probably a few different types of module, and then custom UI can help you pick your options to end up with hundreds of different variations. I guess that's probably where I see it going. Just to get some feedback from you guys, I mean, have many of you used Site Builder to do that kind of thing? Because that's exactly what it's there for, really. And I just wonder whether we can expand that, and whether we need any particular feedback from you guys to go in the right direction.
I haven't.
I personally don't, but
I
it's
haven't
just because, me, again, like I've shared before, my workflow, I'm all about the design, the brand, the look and the feel. And as a one-man show, kind of sort of, or the main guy doing the bulk of the work when it comes time to spin up a client website, I'm needing to cut down on as many things as possible to streamline my workflow and get things turned around in as quickly as possible. And the way that I have found to be most successful at that is to find a template that most closely represents all of the features and functionalities that I need, and then just alter that template and done. I mean, literally changing the logo out, changing, maybe the font style, some leading, entering the content, and I have a finished, well-designed product almost instantly, rather than have to go through the design process. Because for my workflow, I feel like the design process takes the most amount of time. And because I'm not in the design space all the time, it's not that simple for me to just push out a really good looking design. It helps me to start with a good design and then alter it for my customers' needs. So using something like a site builder seems like it goes against that grain, if you will, because it would force me to switch to a design focused mindset, because the site builder tool is already there. And I just don't work that way. So I prefer the other. So that's why I would never use Site Builder, I don't think.
But I think that's where we've packaged it wrongly, or we've not explained the different angles in which you can use it from. So I would say everything that you just described, all the way up to getting the template in, getting the content in, everything, I totally agree with. My question would be, what do you do at the point you then need to start building in Siteglide functionality? And that's where I'd argue that Site Builder can come in, because you can use your template, you've got all your static pages set up, and then you could use Site Builder to help you build out the dynamic section. So you could go to blog and install the blog with that specific layout. And as long as yours runs off Bootstrap or Tailwind, you'd be able to get a starting point layout for your dynamic content and then customize it to your theme. So back to the conversation of, say, a gallery, if you wanted a masonry output of the gallery module, you could use Site Builder to give you all the Siteglide code effectively, all the setup and output of list view and detail view if there was one. And then you're basically then applying your design on top. That's how, in my mind, I wanted it to work. And obviously, that's not how it's working in reality. And
Well,
I need to
I
know
have a
whether
use
it's
case, right? I
sorry,
have a
sorry,
use case right now that is doing exactly what you just said. One of my
okay.
clients, I took your advice and I duplicated their website, made a copy of it so I could install the new site builder or not so we could see it, and showed him. And he wants to get behind the wheel and drive. I'm like, okay, but don't break anything. But anyway, when he saw that, he just really liked it, and so we've been experimenting with it. And like you said, we already have the site built kind of like on a bootstrap foundation.
Mhm.
And so the goal is we're going to build a subsection and we're going to be able to just grab these module components and play with them and then either copy the code onto the new page or whatever. So in a sense, we're using the template that we've already built it on, which was an old BC template, but then, port it over. But it's built on Bootstrap. And so we can
Yep.
we don't have to, in other words, we don't have to completely build the whole site in Site Builder, but quickly we can get visualizations up and say, oh, you need a slideshow? Okay, here you go. Boom, this is what it looks like. Oh, you need,
Yep.
An author's thing? Okay, here,
Yep.
this is what it looks like.
Forms as well.
Yeah,
Forms would
forms
be
or
a
whatever.
great reason.
And so it's a speedy way to visually design, and then you can just go in, view the source code, copy the code, paste it into whatever page you need, and boom, you're off and running. So, I've worked like that. I'm used to that workflow because I used to do a lot of that with Muse, but it was very not the same thing because I would build in Muse and then I'd integrate all the functionality, all the advanced functions in Business Catalyst. But Site Builder has a lot of it's way more modern because it's all using modern code, but it kind of gives you that quick flexibility to build something really visually quick and then show your client, say, sign off on this. Is this what you want? Okay, now I can implement it. But like I said, you can integrate it with your existing website. You don't have to build the whole thing, if that makes any sense.
So if I'm understanding you, you can have, so you can use a template that we put, for instance, I have a site out there that would be using as a model for selling other products, right? I'm going to duplicate it and create a product out of it. And we used an HTML template to do that, brought all that stuff in. DJ helped me out. And so now you're saying that we could tie that into Site Builder as well? Could we add on to
So
the
for
current site,
example,
or do we have to duplicate that and build that in?
well, what I would recommend you do is make a copy of a site or make a fresh site so you can play around with Site Builder so you can kind of see, or duplicate
Okay.
your client's site, just copy it, then install Site Builder 2, and then the module, usually that comes active when you duplicate it now, I believe, when you copy it, and then play around with it and see what it is. But for example, you have a page on your site, you could just duplicate that page as like a test page,
Mhm.
build the functionality with Site Builder 2,
Okay,
and show the client, and then if they sign off on it, then you could take that whole page and make it the active page. And
okay,
again, as long as your site is built in Bootstrap or Tailwind, or what was the other one?
Just those for now.
Right. Then it'll work.
should work. Oh, that's awesome.
So here's
I was wondering
another
if that would work, so that's good to know.
Yeah. But I would
here's
experiment with a
another
copy first.
here's another thought on that, Michael and Luke, specifically where forms are concerned.
Mhm.
So the thing that I'm noticing is, as part of this workflow of integrating a template and just changing the design, as you know, form elements are custom. And the default form that's generated when you create a form in Siteglide is not. I mean, it has the default values. So in that case, I would be presented with one of two options: either change the CSS to have the default Siteglide form you know, classes so that I don't have to edit the form and I can always just use the default and embed it and boom, it takes on the look and feel of the template. Or what I've been doing is I've been going in, copying the default form code, creating a new custom layout, and then changing the form elements. But that requires obviously additional work, you
Yeah.
know, kind of thing. But are you saying with Site Builder, I wouldn't have to go through that process because it would just,
Well, I was trying, I was gonna log in to see, and maybe Luke knows the answer to this. The layouts for like a module, I think, because you're talking, or a form, I'm sorry. Can those be edited by Site Builder? You know what
So
I'm talking about? Because
I
he's
was
talking
going to
about the default layout that is created from a form, but then you can do a custom layout and you can assign that custom layout to the form.
I was just going to say the single biggest argument I would have for you, DJ, to try Site Builder is forms because it would save you just so much time. The point is you can um, install a form layout, pick from the ones that you want, Bootstrap ones, and it will set up all of that for you so you don't have to copy the default and do your own styling and everything. And it's completely dynamic. So if you change the form fields or anything later, it'll dynamically update. And it's got all the validation on there that we spoke about earlier. So all you've got to do to make it fit your workflow, in my mind, is do your front end template stuff, install Site Builder, install a Bootstrap form using it, and then just go and style the dynamic form elements once. And once you've done that once, the whole thing is then dynamic.
I see where you're going with this. I get what you're saying.
okay.
Miss that.
You know, I was looking at the layout, the custom layout in the back end and under the you know, under the site what do you call it? It does, you don't have access to Site Builder in there, but what Luke is saying makes sense. You build the form using the values that you created in the custom layout, and then you can just, you know, enhance, you can change all of the CSS based on that form field. You know, the form field would stay the same because it's not going to overwrite the form field name, right? The custom form field name. It's just going to do the CSS around. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
We need to do a workshop on,
Yeah, we
on
should do
Site
a
Builder, I think.
workshop on that. You know?
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend having a look if you haven't before. I mean, it's completely free. There's no reason I'm saying it other than I think it would save everyone time in any workflow. I feel where I haven't joined the dots very well is explain the different workflows and how to fit it into your workflow, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Site Builder implies that it's for building sites. Like you would go there first and start there. You know, I wasn't thinking that it was something that I could inject in my existing workflow of finding a template, integrating it, uploading the custom CSS, you know, inserting the tags, all of that kind of stuff, and then start using Site Builder from there. Yeah, that's not what I believed it to be, in other
Yeah.
words.
There's actually two ways to do your workflow using Site Builder. One is do the Site Builder stuff first. So get all your you're building the house, build the walls, get the infrastructure right, put the modules in and the layouts, and then apply your design cosmetic styling over the top, or do it the other way around. You can do either, but the point is you're not stuck with Site Builder. If you use it, you can use as much or as little as you want.
Yeah.
But I'm probably gonna do some videos on it, but also a workshop on it as well. But I definitely recommend having a look for forms if nothing else. Even just for forms on any site, I think it would be valuable.
Cool.
But yeah, so tying that back to gallery, and I think maybe what I'll go away and do is if we could help sort of look at modules in the marketplace that are basically the brief. They're the functionality remit. We need to understand what it is that thing needs to do and the different options for it. That is the module. You then have layouts for it that would just be generic Bootstrap and generic Tailwind that would fit with Site Builder. Site Builder is then your way to connect the two together. You connect the functionality with the layout and insert it onto a page. And then you do your custom styling on top and your custom development on top. And I think I need to, if it's taking us a while to get our heads around that workflow, then we can't expect you guys to. So I'll do my best to tie it all together.
Sounds good.
Cool. I appreciate everybody's time. I know it's been quite a while. Any other burning topics that people wanted to talk about? Okay. Yeah, well, we wish everybody a really good year. We're really ready to get cracking and just make the platform better and do these kind of things that we're talking about. So any feedback would be extremely welcome, especially Studio V2. If you haven't looked at it, I'd really recommend just going onto one of your staging sites, test sites, take a copy maybe, and turn it on. So you have to turn it on now for each site, just because we don't want you having clients going, why is my editor changed? So have a play around with it and give us any feedback. We want to keep enhancing it and improving it, but we can only do that with feedback. So yeah. Hopefully this has been helpful, been very helpful for me, and we'll keep some of these discussions going.
Sounds good.
Awesome.